The foal had never been alone before. Born just weeks ago, it had always stayed close to its mother, trotting beside her as the herd moved through the vast, open plains. The sun had been high when it strayed too far, too curious, too playful, not realizing it had wandered beyond safety. Now, the sun was low, stretching the shadows long across the tall grass, and the foal was lost. And it was being watched. Yellow eyes flickered in the underbrush. Silent paws pressed against the cold earth. The wind carried the faintest scent of blood, the last breath of another creature that had fallen prey to the merciless law of the wild. The foal stumbled forward, letting out a desperate whinny. No answer came. The herd was too far. The wind swallowed its cry. Then, the first wolf stepped forward. It was lean and sharp, its ribs pressing against its fur, hunger burning in its eyes. Behind it, more shadows shifted, forming a ring. A full pack. The foal's legs trembled. It was small, weak. It could run, but it wouldn't get far. The wolves knew this. They did not rush. They moved in slow, patient steps, like a storm rolling over the horizon, inevitable and unrelenting. The foal backed up, its breath coming fast, its heart pounding against its ribs. It turned once, searching desperately for an escape. Nothing. Only empty plains. The world suddenly felt too big, too quiet, too unforgiving. Then, something shifted in the tall grass. The wolves froze. The foal heard it too, the sound of something moving, not fast, not in a panic, but with a slow, deliberate weight. A presence. It was not another horse. It was something else. The wolves turned, ears twitching, sniffing the air. The foal held its breath. From the shadows, something stared back. And it was not afraid. The foal's breath came fast and shallow, its chest rising and falling in panicked bursts. The wolves had paused, but only for a moment. Their hesitation was not fear. It was calculation. They were hunters, patient and precise. Whatever had stirred in the grass was being evaluated. Threat? Or nothing more than a passing shadow? The pack leader, a grizzled wolf with a scar over one eye, took a step forward, testing the air. The foal shuddered as its yellow eyes locked onto its own. The message was clear. You will not survive this. A low growl rippled through the pack, deep and guttural, sending a shiver through the foal's fragile body. The wolves were closing the circle, shrinking the space between them. Their muscles tensed, waiting for the right moment. The foal stumbled backward, but its legs felt weak, unsteady. It had run earlier, frantically, blindly, but that had only made things worse. Now, its limbs ached, exhaustion weighing down every movement. It tried again, a desperate cry into the wind. Still no answer. The wolves advanced. The leader moved first, slow and deliberate. The others followed, their bodies low to the ground, eyes locked onto their helpless prey. Their tails flicked, signaling readiness. The foal could almost hear their thoughts. It won't take much effort. One lunge. A quick snap. Another step. Another growl. The foal's muscles tensed, the instinct to run battling against the certainty that it would do no good. It felt the ground beneath its hooves, damp and soft from an earlier rain. There was nowhere to go. Then, the tall grass shifted again. The wolves stopped. This time, the presence did not remain hidden. It moved. A heavy sound, like breathing. Slow. Steady. Deliberate. A shadow separated from the landscape, rising from the tall grass like a ghost. Massive, hulking, and unmistakably alive. The foal's ears twitched, its instincts warring between hope and deeper fear. It had never seen anything like it before. The wolves snapped their heads toward the movement, their growls deepening. Their hunt had been simple. The odds had been in their favor. But this? This changed everything. The wind shifted, carrying a new scent. Not another wolf. Not a Mustang. Something else. Something bigger. Something stronger. The pack leader let out a sharp bark, signaling to the others. Stay back. Watch. The foal's legs trembled as it turned its head. And then it saw who had come. The figure that had emerged from the grass was not another horse. It was not a man. It was a bear. A great, scarred grizzly, its fur thick and matted, its dark eyes unreadable. It stood there, still and silent, watching the wolves. It did not charge. It did not growl. It simply watched. The wolves hesitated. The foal held its breath. For the first time, uncertainty rippled through the pack. The battle was no longer just about hunger. It was about who would claim the right to this land. And the bear had made its presence known. The grizzly stood motionless, its massive frame outlined against the dimming sky. The foal, still gasping for breath, dared not move. It had never seen a creature like this before, towering, scarred, and silent. The wolves, however, knew exactly what it was. A grizzly was not prey. It was not something they could overpower easily. The pack had taken down elk before, even bison calves if they were desperate enough. But a bear, a full-grown, battle-worn grizzly, was a different kind of force. The foal saw the slightest flicker of hesitation in the lead wolf's stance. A test of instincts. The grizzly had not yet attacked. That meant it was not here to hunt them. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was weak. Maybe it was bluffing. The leader took a step forward, teeth bared. The grizzly did not react. The foal felt its heart pounding harder. The wolves were not leaving. The bear had done nothing to drive them off. Had it only wandered into this scene by accident? Another step. A younger wolf, emboldened by the grizzly's stillness, let out a growl and took a lunge forward. Then, the bear moved. Not fast, not in a panic. It simply lifted its head and took a single step, one powerful, deliberate motion. The ground beneath the foal vibrated from the sheer weight of it. The wolves stopped instantly. The air itself felt different. The foal's trembling legs locked in place as the bear finally spoke, not in words, but in a deep, rumbling growl that did not come from its throat but from its very chest. A sound that rolled through the valley, ancient and final. It was not a warning. It was a statement. I am here. The lead wolf's ears flicked back. For the first time, uncertainty crept into its golden eyes. The rest of the pack took small steps away, muscles still tense, but no longer advancing. The foal exhaled, though its lungs still burned with fear. The grizzly stood its ground, unshaken. It had no fear. But why? It was outnumbered. The pack could bring it down if they wanted to. Even a bear couldn't fight off an entire group of wolves without taking damage. The foal suddenly realized, the grizzly wasn't afraid because it had already decided it would fight if needed. It was not a question of if. It was a matter of when. The lead wolf lifted its head, assessing the situation. The foal could see the gears turning behind those eyes. The hunger was still there, but so was instinct. And instinct knew when a battle was no longer worth the risk. The tension was unbearable. Would they attack? Would they leave? Then, a single mistake. A younger wolf, impatient and reckless, lunged. Not at the bear. At the foal. A final attempt. A desperate move. But it never reached its target. Because the grizzly exploded into motion. Faster than the foal ever thought possible. The bear, who had stood so still, who had watched without emotion, erupted into a living force of nature. It was not here by accident. It had made a choice. And that choice was to protect. The world blurred as the grizzly moved. For a creature so massive, so heavy, its speed was unnatural. One moment, it stood as an unmoving sentinel. The next, it was pure motion, a force of nature, a wall of fur and muscle surging forward like a storm. The young wolf never saw it coming. With a single, bone-rattling swipe, the grizzly's paw met the wolf's side, not with claws fully extended, not to kill, but with enough force to send the reckless attacker flying. The wolf hit the dirt with a sharp yelp, tumbling through the grass before scrambling back onto unsteady legs. It staggered, shaking its head in a daze. The rest of the pack froze. The grizzly had not chased the wolf. It had not roared. It had not pursued the kill. Instead, it returned to its stance, standing tall, staring them down. A silent message. This is your only warning. The foal stood rooted to the ground, still gasping for air, unable to process what it had just seen. The wolves hesitated, their formation faltering. The lead wolf's muscles tensed, a battle of instincts raging in its mind. Attacking a foal was one thing. Attacking a bear that had already proven its strength, was another. The younger wolves paced in frustration, ears flicking back, uncertain. Hunger still burned in their bellies. The foal was still an easy target. But now, it was no longer alone. It was protected. The standoff stretched, tension thick as the coming night. The foal's legs wobbled beneath it. It had no idea why this creature had intervened. Why hadn't the bear taken advantage of the situation? Why had it stopped the wolves but not attacked them? The grizzly stood in complete silence, waiting. It did not growl. It did not snarl. It only watched. The lead wolf exhaled sharply, shaking its thick fur. A decision was forming in its eyes. It would not let its pack be wasted on a fight they did not need to win. The scarred leader turned its head, looking back toward the others. A silent command. The pack, still restless, still unwilling, began to retreat. One by one, the wolves stepped back into the tall grass, melting into the twilight. The hunger in their eyes remained, but instinct had won. Survival was always about choosing the right battle. And tonight, they had chosen to walk away. The foal let out a shaky breath, its small frame sagging in exhaustion. The grizzly didn't turn to it. Not yet. It remained still, its dark eyes following the last wolf as it disappeared into the shadows. Only when the final rustling of grass faded into silence did the bear finally exhale, a low, rumbling breath, as if it, too, had been waiting to see what the wolves would do. Then, it did something the foal did not expect. It turned. And for the first time, the grizzly locked eyes with the foal. The moment stretched. The foal, still trembling, did not understand. This was a creature of power, a hunter in its own right. It had no reason to intervene, no reason to care. And yet, it had. The foal blinked up at its protector, uncertain, afraid, yet unable to look away. What had just happened? Why had this beast of the wild come to its aid? And more importantly, what would it do now? The silence after the wolves' retreat felt heavy, like a storm that had passed but left the sky uneasy. The foal, still trembling, dared not move. Its fragile legs wobbled beneath it, muscles aching from exhaustion and fear. The rush of the last few moments pulsed in its chest, a heartbeat too fast, too desperate. Yet, it was still alive. And it was not alone. The grizzly stood motionless, its dark eyes unreadable, its massive form towering over the foal. The wind shifted, carrying the lingering scent of wolves, but they were gone now. Only their presence remained, like ghosts in the grass. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the bear took a step forward. The foal flinched. Its instincts screamed run, but its body refused to move. Every survival instinct told it that this was a predator, one swipe of its enormous claws, and it would be over. The wolves had been a certain death, but this? This was unknown. The grizzly stopped, watching. It was waiting. The foal's breathing slowed, but only slightly. It felt something strange in the air, not aggression, not hunger, but something calm. The grizzly had made its choice once already. It had stood against the wolves, had saved the foal when it had no reason to. And now, it was making another choice. The foal felt it, but it didn't understand why. Why? Why had the bear intervened? Why was it not leaving now that the danger was gone? The foal's ears flicked back, confusion filling its small frame. It had spent its life around its herd, surrounded by those who moved as one, who existed together as a family. But this bear? It was alone. A creature of solitude. A beast that owed nothing to anyone. Yet here it was. The foal took a slow, trembling step back. It expected the bear to react, to growl, to move, to break the silence. But the bear did nothing. It simply stood there, watching. Not hunting. Not threatening. Just watching. And for the first time, the foal saw something it had never expected to see in a creature like this. Understanding. It did not have the words for it, but it felt it. The same way its mother would stand over it when it stumbled. The same way the herd would shift, positioning themselves to protect their weakest members. The foal had been abandoned by the wild. It had been left behind, lost, a fragile thing standing alone against death. And somehow, this bear had recognized that. The foal swallowed. Its body still ached, exhaustion pressing into every limb. It didn't know if it could move, didn't know if it should. The bear seemed to sense it. Then, with a slow and deliberate motion, it turned. The foal's breath caught. The grizzly did not walk away, not fully. Instead, it moved just a few steps ahead and stopped. It was facing the open plains, where the horizon stretched beyond the setting sun. The foal's eyes flicked toward the direction the herd had last been seen. Somewhere, its mother was still out there. But the land was still dangerous. The bear did not look back. But it did not leave, either. It waited. As if expecting the foal to follow. The foal, weak but alive, took a step forward. It did not know why. It did not understand. But something deep in its bones told it, this was not over yet. The bear had made its decision. And now, the foal had to make its own. The foal hesitated, its legs trembling beneath its frail body. It had no reason to trust this massive creature, this silent guardian who had emerged from the shadows to stand against the wolves. And yet, something inside the foal, a deep, unexplainable instinct, told it to follow. The grizzly still didn't look back. It simply stood there, its hulking frame outlined against the fading light, waiting. Waiting for the foal to decide. A sharp gust of wind rustled through the grass, carrying the distant scent of the wolves. They were gone, for now. But they were never far. They would regroup. They would return. The foal knew it couldn't stay here. With a shuddering breath, it took a single step forward. The bear still didn't move. Another step. The ground was uneven, its hooves wobbled, but it forced itself forward, each motion an act of survival. Finally, the bear moved. Not fast. Not far. Just a slow, deliberate step forward. The foal followed. The strange pair, one small, fragile, barely able to stand, the other, a towering force of power and solitude, walked together through the tall grass. The foal's ears twitched, scanning the quiet around them. The bear's movements were effortless, soundless, unlike the foal's shaky, uneven steps. Every few moments, the bear would pause, lifting its head to sniff the wind, scanning the horizon with those dark, ancient eyes. It was watching for something. Or someone. The foal's mother. The foal didn't understand why the bear was doing this. It had no reason to care. No reason to stay. And yet, it did. A sudden noise, a distant howl. The foal flinched. The wolves were howling to each other, their eerie voices echoing through the valley. They were not gone. They were still near. Still waiting. The bear's head snapped toward the sound. For the first time, the foal saw it, the shift in its body. A readiness. A silent acknowledgement that the fight was not yet over. The foal's breath hitched. It had to move faster. But its legs, they wouldn't listen. Each step was slower. The exhaustion, the fear, the pain, it was all catching up. The foal stumbled, nearly collapsing. The bear stopped. It turned. Looked down. The foal's breath caught. The grizzly did not walk away, not fully. Instead, it moved just a few steps ahead and stopped. It was facing the open plains, where the horizon stretched beyond the setting sun. The foal's eyes flicked toward the direction the herd had last been seen. Somewhere, its mother was still out there. But the land was still dangerous. The bear did not look back. But it did not leave, either. It waited. As if expecting the foal to follow. The foal, weak but alive, took a step forward. It did not know why. It did not understand. But something deep in its bones told it, this was not over yet. The bear had made its decision. And now, the foal had to make its own. The foal hesitated, its legs trembling beneath its frail body. It had no reason to trust this massive creature, this silent guardian who had emerged from the shadows to stand against the wolves. And yet, something inside the foal, a deep, unexplainable instinct, told it to follow. The grizzly still didn't look back. It simply stood there, its hulking frame outlined against the fading light, waiting. Waiting for the foal to decide. A sharp gust of wind rustled through the grass, carrying the distant scent of the wolves. They were gone, for now. But they were never far. They would regroup. They would return. The foal knew it couldn't stay here. With a shuddering breath, it took a single step forward. The bear still didn't move. Another step. The ground was uneven, its hooves wobbled, but it forced itself forward, each motion an act of survival. Finally, the bear moved. Not fast. Not far. Just a slow, deliberate step forward. The foal followed. The strange pair, one small, fragile, barely able to stand, the other, a towering force of power and solitude, walked together through the tall grass. The foal's ears twitched, scanning the quiet around them. The bear's movements were effortless, soundless, unlike the foal's shaky, uneven steps. Every few moments, the bear would pause, lifting its head to sniff the wind, scanning the horizon with those dark, ancient eyes. It was watching for something. Or someone. The foal's mother. The foal didn't understand why the bear was doing this. It had no reason to care. No reason to stay. And yet, it did. A sudden noise, a distant howl. The foal flinched. The wolves were howling to each other, their eerie voices echoing through the valley. They were not gone. They were still near. Still waiting. The bear's head snapped toward the sound. For the first time, the foal saw it, the shift in its body. A readiness. A silent acknowledgement that the fight was not yet over. The foal's breath hitched. It had to move faster. But its legs, they wouldn't listen. Each step was slower. The exhaustion, the fear, the pain, it was all catching up. The foal stumbled, nearly collapsing. The bear stopped. It turned. Looked down. For a moment, the foal thought this was it couldn't keep up, and the bear would leave it behind. But the grizzly didn't leave. Instead, it did something that sent a new wave of fear through the foal's fragile body. It stepped closer. The foal shrank back, instinct screaming at it to run, but its legs had nothing left to give. The bear sniffed the air, then lowered its massive head, just enough for the foal to feel the deep rumble of its breath. Not a growl. Not a threat. Something else. Something gentle. The foal's ears twitched. It was too exhausted to fight, too weak to flee. And so, it let the bear come close. Another howl, closer this time. The wolves were moving. The bear lifted its head, staring into the darkness beyond the valley. Its body tensed, it knew. They were being hunted. Again. The foal barely had time to react before the bear did something it never expected. It turned and nudged the foal forward. A push, not rough, but firm. A clear command. Move. Now. The foal stumbled, its body screaming in protest, but it obeyed. It didn't understand why this bear was helping. Didn't understand why it was staying. But it didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was survival. So the foal forced its legs to move, one step at a time, while the bear walked beside it. And somewhere in the darkness, the wolves began to close in once more. The night pressed in like a thick, suffocating blanket, the wind carrying whispers of unseen dangers. The foal's legs burned with exhaustion, each step feeling heavier than the last. It had nothing left. But it could not stop. Not with the wolves returning. Not with the bear beside it, its silent, towering form moving like a shadow through the grass. The howls had stopped. That was worse. The wolves were no longer calling to each other. They were hunting. The foal felt the tension in the air, the way the bear's muscles coiled with each step, its ears flicking back toward the unseen threat. The wolves would not attack head-on, not this time. They had learned. They would wait for a weakness. The foal was that weakness. It was slowing down, its breath coming in short, labored gasps. It could feel the weight of its own exhaustion pressing it into the earth, the fear threatening to swallow it whole. And then, a rustling. Close. Too close. The foal flinched as the grass shifted violently to the right, a dark shape moving in the night. Another to the left. The wolves were not gone. They had surrounded them. The foal's eyes widened in terror. It tried to call out, but its voice was too weak, its throat too dry. It couldn't run. The bear stopped. For the first time, it turned fully to face the darkness behind them. And the wolves moved. From the shadows, 3 figures emerged, their bodies low, their eyes gleaming in the moonlight. They had waited long enough. A deep rumble shook through the bear's chest. The foal had heard it before, that warning, that unshakable presence of something ancient and powerful. But this time, the wolves did not hesitate. They lunged. The foal flinched as the first wolf leapt forward, only to be met midair by a wall of pure force. The grizzly struck hard, its massive paw knocking the wolf aside like it weighed nothing. The wolf hit the ground with a yelp, rolling once before scrambling to its feet. But the others were already attacking. A second wolf dove in low, aiming for the foal's legs. The foal tried to move, too slow. A snap of jaws. A blur of motion. A furious roar that shook the earth. The grizzly was faster. It stepped forward, placing itself between the foal and the attack, its enormous body blocking the strike. The wolf barely had time to react before the bear's claws raked the air just inches from its snout, forcing it to veer off. The third wolf hesitated. The lead wolf, the scarred one, the one who had orchestrated this hunt, stood just beyond the others, watching. Calculating. They were testing the bear's limits. How long would it fight? How long would it protect something that was not its own? The foal trembled. This wasn't going to end. Not unless. Then, from deep in the valley, a sound split the night. A piercing, wild scream. The wolves froze. The foal's ears shot up, recognition sparking through its exhausted mind. It knew that sound. It knew that voice. A second scream followed, a call, a demand, a war cry carried by the wind. Then, thunder. No, not thunder. Hooves. The earth trembled beneath them, a rolling, rhythmic pounding growing louder by the second. The wolves snapped their heads toward the noise. And then. She came. A dark shape raced over the ridge, moving like a ghost against the moonlight, wild and furious. The foal's heart nearly stopped. Its mother. And she was not alone. Behind her, a storm of movement, the herd. Mustangs, charging at full speed, their powerful legs tearing across the valley. The wolves turned in panic. Their hunt had just ended. The lead wolf snarled, snapping at the others, but it was too late. The first Mustang hit hard, nearly trampling one of the wolves as the herd surged forward like a living wall. The foal barely had time to react before its mother slammed to a halt beside it, nostrils flaring, eyes burning with rage. The wolves scattered. The lead wolf hesitated for only a second longer, then it turned and ran. The others followed. The foal gasped, unable to believe what it was seeing. It had been alone. And now, it was surrounded by family once more. But when it turned, the bear was still there. Standing motionless, watching as the herd gathered around the foal, encircling it in a barrier of protection. The grizzly did not move. It had done its part. The foal felt something deep inside its chest, a pull, a strange, quiet ache. It didn't want the bear to leave. But somehow, it knew it would. Then, it felt the soft nudge of its mother against its side. The herd began to move. The foal followed. But even as it walked, even as the warmth of its family surrounded it once more, a part of it remained in that field. A part of it would always remember the silent guardian that had stood between it and death. The wolves had been its first lesson in the wild. But the bear had been its second. And it would never forget. The herd moved as one, their hooves stirring the earth beneath them. The foal, weak but alive, stayed close to its mother's side, feeling the warmth of her body, the security of her presence. But even as the foal walked, even as it returned to the safety of the herd, its thoughts remained elsewhere. The bear was gone now, lost to the vastness of the wild. And yet, it had left something behind. A lesson. The foal had always known the world was dangerous. It had seen the way the herd moved together, the way they watched the horizon for signs of threats. It had understood, in a way all wild creatures did, that survival was never guaranteed. But tonight had changed something. It had seen death waiting for it in the wolves' eyes. It had felt fear like never before. And it had learned that sometimes, when all hope seems lost, help comes from the most unexpected place. The foal slowed its steps, glancing back toward the ridge where the bear had disappeared. It would never know why the grizzly had chosen to intervene. The bear had asked for nothing, had taken nothing. It had come, fought, and left, just as mysteriously as it had appeared. But the foal understood one thing now. The wild was not ruled by kindness. But it was not ruled by cruelty alone, either. It was ruled by choices. The wolves had chosen to hunt. The bear had chosen to protect. And now, the foal, small, fragile, and once helpless, had a choice of its own. To grow. To learn. To become strong enough to stand on its own one day. Its mother let out a soft breath, a reassuring sound as she nudged the foal forward. The herd continued onward, moving into the safety of the open plains. The foal did not look back again. It didn't need to. Somewhere out there, the bear had returned to its solitude. Somewhere out there, the wolves would hunt again. The world had not changed. But the foal had. And that was the lesson the wild had taught it tonight. Not everything in life is fair. Not everything is easy. But sometimes, even in the harshest moments, mercy exists. And sometimes, the most fearsome protectors come from the most unexpected places.